All right, so I mentioned that today's song of the day was Radio Radio by Elvis Costello. Why was that our song of the day? Because we have a story about media homogenization and media consolidation. So we go to Free Press now. Free Press slams the Trump FCC for turning its back on broadcast diversity. So this is a little older, so this was a little while back, but Free Press condemned the Federal Communications Commission for failing to prioritize broadcast diversity in the agency's review proceeding on media ownership. The Trump FCC is considering changes to or the elimination of three primary rules: the local radio ownership rule, the local television ownership rule, and the dual network rule. Each was put in place to help fulfill the agency's central mandate, promoting localism, diversity, and competition over the public airways. Now, keep in mind, we already have a completely gutted policy when it comes to how many stations one entity can own. So the rules that they're looking to roll back are already very soft rules to begin with. They're already like the bare minimum to try to promote media diversity. And this can be traced back to 1996. In 1996, we had the Telecommunications Act of 1996, where the Clinton administration pretty much lifted all the regulations of how many radio stations and television stations one company could own. Before the Telecommunications Act of 1996, an entity could only own 2 FM and 2 AM stations in a given market. They could only own 40 stations nationwide out of anything. Those rules were all lifted and gutted with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So now these newer rules to promote ownership in the local market, they're all just pretty small rules to begin with, and just the bare minimum to assure any kind of media diversity. One of the things that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 did was it spawned a new movement called the low power FM movement. Now what this was people getting new radio stations and frequencies to have community radio stations. Now what the FCC did, and basically what Clear Channel and the big cable companies did, the big companies that ran all the radio and television, they wanted rules regarding how far out of a city these stations had to be, so they wouldn't reach many people and they wouldn't be a competitor with the big stations. So low power FM is a smaller FM frequency. It's a lower frequency. And most LPFM stations are located outside of city limits, pretty much all of them, because they have to be. You know, like when I was part of an LPFM station in the Nashville, Tennessee area, the station was like 30 miles outside of Nashville. Maybe not quite that many, but it was significantly outside the city. So it was basically throwing scraps to the idea of broadcast diversity. It was saying, "Oh no, look, we let all these entities have their radio stations. But they're these small stations way outside of city limits that does not have a very big listener reach, and you design it so it has to be that way." So what I'm saying is that these rules are already the bare minimum, and the Trump FCC wants to roll that back. All right, so here's what's going on. In 2017, the FCC determined women own just 7% of FM radio stations. People of color own less than 3%. Numbers for television stations barely better. So the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit has told the FCC in 3 previous rounds of litigation that before proceeding with rule changes, the agency must first consider the impact those changes would have on diversity across the industry, something it has thus far failed to do. So basically, the FCC wants to roll back these 3 primary rules: the local radio ownership rule, the local television ownership rule, the dual network rule. And as far as what will this do to a community, what will this do to affect diversity in broadcast ownership? Well, obviously it will hurt that, but the FCC didn't do any of those reviews. The court was like, "Hey, FCC, you have to do this review." And the FCC was like, "Sure, we'll do it." We'll do it. And then they didn't do it. Because obviously, when you already have a completely consolidated media where just scraps are thrown to any type of diversity and ownership, any policy that would further roll back what little rules we still have, what few rules we still have left, and you're going to roll that back, obviously that's going to crush what little diversity in media on the airwaves we still have. So clearly the FCC didn't do any type of review to make sure this assures diversity in broadcast. Because if they did, they would realize that they shouldn't be rolling this shit back. But they want to roll it back because who does Ajit Pai report to? Big cable. They want to make sure there's no diversity on the radio waves or the television waves. And we don't have that. And if we lose the free and open internet, the one thing that's a competitor for the marketplace of ideas, where different viewpoints can be heard on a regular basis, you guys all know that. That's why you're here. If we lose the free and open internet, we're done because there's no diversity on the radio. You get a fringe right-wing viewpoint or a center right-wing viewpoint. NPR, the supposed progressive option on the dial, gets money from the Koch brothers, gets money from big oil. I heard a story on net neutrality once on NPR. They had a cable lobbyist and a cable lobbyist talk about the issue. I'm not shitting you. That was their diversity in viewpoints. A cable lobbyist and a cable lobbyist. So that's why if we lose the free and open internet, we're completely screwed because they already got radio and TV from us. They already took that from us. We have, at best, scraps. So this bleeds into the next story, which is a net neutrality story. And this is something that Fight for the Future did. You know, last story we gave Free Press a shout out. This comes to us with the help of Fight for the Future. Both are amazing organizations doing a lot for the free and open internet and a lot for net neutrality and a lot for just trying to get a better media and media pulse in this country. Which, you know what I say? I used to say our media structure in the United States is toxic. Now I say we don't have a media structure and that's toxic. But it'd be cool if we had one. It'd be cool if we had protections on the ownership of media and transparent rules for the benefit of consumers and actual protections for journalists. You know who has all those things? Norway. You know who has the #1 rated media structure in the world when it comes to press freedom? Norway. You know who just went down 2 spots, so they're barely in the top 50? The United States. We were number 46, baby. Now we're 48. Why did we go down a few spots? Gee, I don't know. Google Julian Assange. Google Chelsea Manning. That might be a clue. Oh, and also what little rules we have protecting diversity in media. The FCC is trying to roll that back. All right, but this net neutrality story, here we go. This is something cool that Fight for the Future did. Net neutrality activists debut Phoenix billboard calling cinema corrupt. So, Kristen Sinema is one of the only Democrats, maybe the only Democrats, to not get on board with the Save the Internet Act. What is the Save the Internet Act? The Save the Internet Act is the act that restores net neutrality protections. We lost net neutrality protections in 2017. We had them since the advent of the Internet. We had assumed net neutrality since the advent of the Internet. What we didn't have was something solid on the books. Digital rights activists for years called for solid net neutrality protections on the books. One day, big cable, Verizon, they took the FCC to court saying that they couldn't enforce net neutrality. The court rules in Verizon's favor, but they told the FCC, hey, if you designate the internet a Title II designation, meaning it has to be treated as a utility because it's so essential to people's lives, you have to treat it like flowing water or a telephone service, then you can have net neutrality on the books. And everyone has to abide by net neutrality. Tom Wheeler didn't want to do that because he was a cable lobbyist, but the people yelled. And they yelled so loud they crashed the FCC's website. They were digitally yelling. So the FCC did the right thing, and they designated the internet as Title II. We got net neutrality protections on the books. When Ajit Pai took over the FCC, he repealed all that. The Save the Internet Act of 2019 basically says we're reinstating what we got on the books in 2015, designated the internet as a Title II, and all this stuff that you repealed, no, you didn't repeal it. We're going back to the way it was because we got it right. That's basically what the bill does. It is 3 pages long. Kristen Sinema did not support that bill, and she's a Democrat. All right. So, an activist-sponsored billboard slamming Kristen Sinema appeared Wednesday off Interstate 17 in Phoenix. The digital billboard on the south side of the freeway was crowdfunded in March by net neutrality activist group Fight for the Future. Its message, Cinema is corrupt. She's siding with corporate donors to kill net neutrality, so you pay more for worse internet. The crowdfunding campaign started after Cinema became one of the few Democrats in Congress who didn't sign the Save the Internet Act, a net neutrality bill intended to reverse the FCC's 2017 decision to allow providers to customize internet access services. Instead, she joined an otherwise Republican working group to draft legislation that would encourage internet providers to treat traffic to all websites equally. Okay, what is that article referring to? So it's very diplomatically referring to the Republicans' counteroffers to net neutrality, which were fake net neutrality bills. Why were they fake net neutrality bills? They basically said, hey, internet service providers, please do the right thing and don't test the limits of net neutrality, which, by the way, internet service providers already are. Look at what Verizon did to the firefighters in California, AT&T. They're already trying to violate net neutrality because they don't have to follow it anymore. Net neutrality assures a free and open internet. Without net neutrality, different content providers can get paid prioritization. Different consumers can get certain access to certain sites and can get custom internet packages that doesn't include certain internet services they rely on. You get the drill. So the fake Republican bills that Kristen Sinema is okay with are bills that are fake net neutrality bills. Why? Because they don't designate the internet as Title II, which means the internet service providers can do whatever they want. And you're just asking them to do the right thing, which guess what? They're not going to do. You think Comcast is going to do the right thing? Comcast, the most hated company in the country. The company that gets third-party organizations to run their customer service because they don't give a shit about their customers, but they save money doing it that way. So you have to go through multiple webs to get basic customer service help at Comcast, and it's set up that way because they don't actually want to help you, but it saves them money. Even the installation is done by a third-party contractor, so they don't give a shit. But they'll do the right thing. We can trust Kristen Sinema and these Republican bills. They'll do the right thing. All right. Evan Greer, who's awesome. You should check her out, and you should get her album. Her new album's out now. It's called She, Her, They, Them. And it's a really good album. And we interviewed her here on this show. Evan Greer, Deputy Director of Fight for the Future, accused Sinema of only caring about the interest of telecom lobbyists, saying it's the only way to oppose her opposition to a bill all other Democrats support. Yep. And so here's a look at that billboard. Sinema is corrupt. She's siding with corporate donors to kill net neutrality, so you pay more for worse internet. CinemaIsCorrupt.com. Good job, Fight for the Future. Thank you guys.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to